Hello. All right. So it is January 2nd. Yes. And one of the things to share with you is about Anput, aka Anubis. So I was listening to a video this morning about the Sphinx in Egypt. So there are several messages to share with you all. So most people are educated about the Egyptians and know that they are very precise. And when it comes to the Sphinx, people are learning that that is a Greek word. That is something the Greeks created, and that there is actually no writings about the Sphinx in the Egyptian writings until after, I believe. I don't think there's any writings about the Sphinx, but maybe after that part of the body of what used to be Anubis. So, one of the messages that I've been getting for a while, and honestly, I've been intimidated to really go this route, but it is part of the new, okay? Anubis, aka Anput, or Anpu, okay? And Anubis is depicted as this jackal, as they're called, or a dog god. And there are writings that Anubis was the first deity, and this is true. Only what is being greatly missed, I believe, and I'm just going to say that I believe, and I think that there is a lot of information coming out as to this being true. And I'm not sure if I shared it on one of these videos or if the video made it and got erased, but uh in one of the very famous pictures of Anubis where there's, I believe it's Annie, that's laying on the table, so to speak. And then there's two deities on either side, and they're wearing the wolf slash jackal head. It's actually a wolf, is what I learned, or dog, right? And all dogs come from wolves. And then there's Anubis over the body. And it's a very famous picture. You see it everywhere, where there's one that's actually in the temples, and what looks like is Anubis has breasts, and the breasts have been removed, and the two deities on either side of the table are female. um I mentioned it before, the pyramid codes. She actually figures out that the women are ushering in the men, that they're wearing wigs. The wigs are to represent a woman, because a woman is supposed to be able to reach a status of enlightenment and grace and power without selfish intention. This is a matriarchal. This is, if you go into most matriarchal settings, you will find a group rather than just one person. Okay, now back to Anubis. Anput. Wajet. So this is also another name for Sirius. Sirius' name was changed. So when it comes to the Sphinx and the Egyptians and perfection, the head does not fit the body. Everything else in Egypt is perfect, and we can tell that the head doesn't fit the body. We also know that the head was discovered sometime in the late either 30s or early 40s, and then excavation, basically removing tons and tons and tons of sand from around the body of the Sphinx, which is much more like a dog body, to reveal the body and the head of this Sphinx, is what they call it. Well, okay. At the time, so there's many stories about why it's called a Sphinx. I believe, or the theory or the message that I got, is that the pharaoh at the time still remembered the magical properties of how to shape and carve stone and or wood. Most likely it could have been wood at that time, because wood does petrify, and even science has been perplexed by how long it can take to petrify. So that's my theory, that it was wood that was carved initially. With that said, the Sphinx's face was created by that pharaoh to remind us and remind the generations of what we're capable of, through sound and through thought and through practice, magical practices. Because what I think is that the top of the Sphinx, which was actually the body of Anubis, what was sticking out of the sand was possibly like broken ears and maybe a broken nose of Anubis. But it's actually Anput. It was female first. This is like the great message. Female first. We've been taught that we have a father deity, and that's not completely untrue, because the deity that we base that off of is Marduk, and Marduk was able to procreate through the magical powers of actually other women, or females, deities that were no longer living, and he was able to harness their energies and create who we know as Eve. At least that's what I've been told by my spirits or whatever. By Anput is basically by the Great Mother, by Anput. Anput is one of the Great Mothers. There's two sisters that left Marduk and came here, and it was Anput and her sister Lilith, that most people know as Lilith. And these stories have been twisted around with Enlil and Enki and Marduk, and a lot of stories of the Anunnaki. And there is a lot more that even hasn't been shared with me. So I've been writing and channeling basically about Anput, and to share how the earth was created, how we ended up being here, and a little bit about her, because there are deities that need to be remembered, because they are some of the first prime creators, and Anput is one of them. And giving, even Thoth, female, like most of the information that we've learned and that has been handed down has actually been handed down through females. And that's because mostly the information was trusted, but also there are basically what we were told are star seeds that hold certain keys. And that's not just thought processes, it's tones of voices, and it's like a strand of sound and vibration from whatever planet or galactic star seed energy they come from. Okay, so here's where I'm going to start. Unconditional, a place we speak about and imagine. The subtle glimpse of that place, where no matter what you do, all is without conditions. What better way to stimulate lethargy? Sociologically, make as many conditions felt, heard, and seen specifically by fear, and let the ones, quote unquote, try to evade the unconditional. The light and love of the Great Mother is our elemental, terrible, like terror, like land, terrible. She is able to make lands vast and unconditional. That is the manipulation of minds to seek the unconditional, when, if there are none where love is, why so many conditions? While the word is unconditionally out there and love is the truth shall set us free. Darkness of a new moon sky, oil sheen moon silver bending light, eluding to eyes then a cheekbone profile, hazy stars, diamonds, dragon's breath, not fiery, though possible, like fog off the coastline, slowly burning away as the sun bears its warmth. Golden pink, always the oil sheen piercing sapphire blue, a reminder of eons ago home. She was always holding her keys. Beyond the pineal gland, eyes focused backwards within the mind, as comfortably planted in her womb. Creations. Create ions, particles of beingnesses. Were the gods. Thoughts of life occurred, and the cycle is so omni. Elevated minds, better, elevated mentally, elementally. See? The royal child was always a female. An agreement was made long after. That is where Sistren, or singer and direct defendant of the Great Mother, Sibyls, aka the Bible, Kabbalah, Islam, Master, Ma'other, Sister Sistren, were hijacked, and her story became ghost, and his story became truth. The many, many, many infinite cycles of time have brought the alls to this moment. Some of that, even when I'm writing it, is like, what? So, the creation sisters, who are actually still in meditative state, creating and holding this space for this university. And that's what time is. Time is a university so that we can learn. And when it comes to input, that is the intention of creation. Lilith represents like a line and a mystery. They're both very mysterious. They're twins. They've been interchangeable names. Lilith is also Anubis, Anput, Hecate, the goddess of the underworld, just like Anubis. And they are actually able to switch between the two and be as above, so below. And many stories that we've been taught about gods, even Egypt, and really we're invited to go past Egypt, past the Sumerians, Lemurians, Pleiadians. These beings were far ahead of the beings, far ahead in a timeline, yet everything is the same time. And even they knew about back then. Part of our planet is part of the Pleiadians, part of our planet is Tiamat, and part of our planet is itself, Earth. New pieces of other parts of planets put together. And this was all planned and on purpose so that this university of Earth and the rebirth of the Great Mother's thoughts and voice return. I'm going to stop there. Happy New Year. See you next time.